Okay, Donnie Monhaut had an adjustment when he came here because he took Charlie Lorai's place. And Donnie is a legend in his own right. I told somebody I was very blessed. I had a legend to follow a legend. Donnie Monhaut was one of the greatest coaches we ever had. And as a matter of fact, he and Wally and Corey, basically, I mean, if I ever had a question, they would take care of it for me. They ran everything about the defense, and they wanted to start making their own scouting reports. I used to make them. So, I mean, they did everything. Donnie was great, but where Charlie was yelling, Donnie was soft-spoken, and I think it just took the kids a year to get used to the change in style. But Donnie was one of the most respected coaches. I mean, his knowledge was unbelievable, and he is though soft-spoken, very authoritative, and very much in charge of things. The group he coached, he was great helping coordinate the whole defense, and that's not only did they do that, but they could, during the game, they could substitute anytime they wanted to. They could make their own adjustments. I mean, it was unbelievable. That's like Wagner could sub an O-lineman anytime. They didn't have to check it with me. And it was just, I mean, that's how much we're on the same page, and that's how much confidence I had in everybody. And that's, I've had people tell me, South Bend coach said, the reason you win is your staff. You got to, can't argue. That's one of the reasons we went. And I mean, I was never really a self-seeker myself, and I was glad to acknowledge it. And you know what? They made my job easier. They cut my prep time in half. I mean, it was just it got so easy at the end. We would just, we'd come in for staff meetings, and it would take an hour total to get our game plan together on offense, just because we knew the defense, we knew our kids, we knew what we wanted to do. And I found out another interesting thing about a staff. When you handle your staff like I did, with all this authority and responsibility, well, they're going to have suggestions on things they think we should do or try. Can't do everything. But I found this out. If you let them present their idea, and as a staff you discuss it, if you turn it down, they're not upset, because they got to present it. And if you said, it's a good idea, but we got too much in, we just can't do it, I mean, they would understand. What would upset them is if they would have an idea and you say, that's no good, we're not going to do it, and never let them present it, and never consider it. So I was always, when everyone on my staff, anybody on the staff had a suggestion, we always considered it. And they liked that, and they appreciated it. And I mean, in our staff meetings, I'd say, what pass is going to be best this week, Rod? And we had Rod Pollock. He'd say, I think the stick pass is going to be great. Wagner said, if you can get it off in 1 second, it is great. He said, what do you mean 1 second? We can't protect it. He said, the way we're blocking, we can't even block a run through linebacker, and let alone a stunt. So he said, if you run that, quarterback better be ready to throw it in 1 second. And we'd have to argue that. If I say, Rod, passing game starts with protection, I think Wagner, we can't protect it. It would be a great pass. We can't run it. But I mean, that was just the way we did it.
All right. This next one, we're going to talk about. Some guy by the name of Corey Yeoman.
Okay.
Your thoughts on Corey Yeoman?
Well, Corey is, again, one of the great assistant coaches we ever had. He was a combination of Charlie Lorai and Don Monhaut. He would get excited, and that's Corey. You see that to this day. Every time something big happens, and he was always on the field. He'd meet his defense coming off and hugging them and throwing them around. But boy, he could talk. He could lower his when we'd talk serious about things. He was one of the greats. And again, initiative, he had it. You didn't ever have to tell him about do this or try this. Would you help here? He would just figure it out and do it. And he was a very, very logical choice to be the head coach when I retired. And it was kind of a given that he was going to be the coach, and he didn't know if he was ready for it. He was way ready for it, and that was the only thing that Corey and I ever talked about. No X's and O's, and this is something my wife said. This is splitting hairs, but there's a difference, and I think you might understand it. Corey says, I'll have you on speed dial. I said, well, let me tell you something. I'm not going to give you advice, ever. Because when you give someone advice, it's what you're saying is, I think this is what you should do. I said, Corey, it's your team now, and you're going to do a great job. But here, I'm not going to leave you hanging. Here's what I'm going to say. I'll say, well, here's what I would try. And I'm not going to tell you it's advice. I'm just going to tell you what I would try. And if you don't want to do it, it's not going to bother me a bit. If I can help you out, that's great. And my wife says, well, that's splitting hairs. Well, it is and it isn't. I'm telling him what I would do. I'm not telling him he should do it, which advice is. So we can talk all the time because he knows I'm never going to tell him he should do this, but I'm going to tell him this is what we did in the summer situation. When we saw this defense, here's what we tried and had success with. I'm just letting him know, and he can keep what he wants to keep, throw out what he wants to throw out. And that has enabled us to talk very candidly and blunt with each other about anything that comes up, because he knows that I'm never going to tell him, here's what you should do. But I am going to tell him that, here's some ideas you might want to consider. And continuing on, I never wanted an assistant that wanted all the credit or wanted this or that, and you had to put the team first and so on. That's the same way I am now with what we would do to Corey. If I tell him something that he doesn't want to do, it doesn't bother me a bit. I gotta what he did for me all these years, I got to do for him now, and it sincerely doesn't bother me. I just gave him something to think about, and if he wants it, great. But anyway, he's doing a super job. I say he brought Penn into the 21st century. I used to do my game plans longhand. He's had computerized everything. He has done so much more with films than we didn't have huddle and that sort of thing when I was there. And I mean, his program, I'm in awe of his coaching. I go out and Thursdays and they are so organized, and everybody knows where they're going to be, kids and coaches, and he's done an absolutely great job. People say, are you worried that the Penn program will go down when you get out? I said, no, what I'm worried about is in 10 years, nobody will ever remember me or even know who I was, because that's how good a job Corey's going to do. And luckily, I still don't remember, but luckily Corey is doing an absolute great job. And he's, if I was head coach again, I'd steal ideas from him, I'll tell you.